Hello, world. This is TJ Morris, and you're listening to ET Radio for American Communications Online tonight with Janet Carroll Lessin, our well-known co-host in Maui, Hawaii, with Aquarian Radio. We're syndicating tonight with American Communications Online, TJ Morris ET Radio, and Aquarian Radio. And Janet Carroll Lessin, on Thursdays we have a women's talk, and she's found a very special lady named Agnes Andrews, and I'll let her say her name later so I don't mess it up. But Janet is very good at finding people that we like to align with in our Ascension Age. So let me get her on here, and we'll talk. So thank you, everybody, for listening around the world. We are universal, and we have our regular radio shows on YouTube, Spreaker, Stitcher, the big one, iTunes, FM radio, and many, many other places. So thank you, everyone, especially all our Facebook friends. We have thousands and listening to us. So thank you very much. If you can hear me and you want to call in, 347-945-7207, and we will take questions after the first hour. Okay, Janet Carroll Lessin, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Hi.
Great.
I'm going to tell listeners a little bit about Agnes, and I want Agnes to correct me. Toews-Andrews is the hyphenated last name. I have a bio and a bunch of information about Agnes and pictures on aquarianradio.com, and I think TJ will be putting it on her websites as well. And tonight we're going to talk to Agnes about her ETs that she is in contact with. She's an ET contactee since a child. She's seen UFOs and IFOs, identifiable flying objects. She's a dweller on several portals, and she's going to talk about the UFO trench of BC, British Columbia. She's a Reiki master since 1992. I guess it was in Jerusalem. She received her certification. She's a metaphysician master, and she received her initiation on Mount Shasta. And she had many visions and beyond-the-body experiences. She was taken to Source and the Goddess on several occasions. She's a connector to the angelic and demic realms, many of which she has seen and received messages from. She's a fire priestess, which means she has access to the spiritual hierarchy, including the 13 spirit grandmothers of time, who are 12th-dimensional ancient beings from many different stars and planets. She's an Earth representative of one grandmother since 2004 and carries one of the grandmother's shields, the lizard shield, and this shield represents pre-consciousness, the goddess, genetic memories, reptilian human crossbreeding, and crystal intelligence. So we're going to be talking about all kinds of things, angelics and divas, the ascension body, what this means, and how to create an ETs that have visited. And she's got some YouTube videos. All of this is on aquarianradio.com, and then TJ will be telling what websites that she's putting it up on. Back to you, TJ. What would you like to say before we bring on Agnes?
I'd like you to introduce yourself a little bit, and just because this is going up for everybody, so they'll know a little bit about you. And I'm calling from Gulf Breeze, Florida, and you're calling from Maui, Hawaii, but give them a little bit of background on you real quick since we're recording here live, please.
Okay.
And we'll go on to Agnes.
Yes, I'm TJ's partner in crime, her co-host since 2012 on many, 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 many shows. We are documenting the 21st century human life here on the planet. And I work with my husband, Dr. Sasha Lessin, here in Maui, Hawaii, and we have a counseling practice, although somewhat limited, so because we're kind of semi-retired, but we do see clients still. And I'm a radio host with him on Revolution Radio, as well as with Theresa J. Morris on Thursdays. And I'm an author. We've got about 10 books done and another, 5 or 6 books in the process. TJ and I are going to work on a book. But we got to get to it. It's already February. That's our 2019 book. Got to get it done. And I have a bunch of cats. I have a cat colony, and they keep coming, and we keep feeding them. So anybody, everyone's making a donation. Soul Foundation. I don't have that site up yet. Anyway, just contact me at Aquarian Radio Gmail, because we can feed them, but we can't see them. We don't have enough money for the vet, and they're hard to get there because they're half wild. The kitties, we have a cat colony. It's registered with Hawaii, but we can use donations to help bring a vet up here. We'd like to have a vet come up and look them all over once in a while, give them their shots and stuff. But anyway, so far we've had 22 years here in the island of Maui, Hawaii. And that's about all I want to say about myself. Back to you, TJ.
All right. Well, that was pretty thorough. Okay. That was pretty thorough.
Today.
All right. Well, that was just something you needed to talk about. All right. Let's get to Agnes. Go ahead, Agnes.
Greetings, everyone. I'm really thrilled to be here today and to talk about my experiences as a planetary citizen and talk about what I feel a duty to share. So fire away. Do you have some questions for me? You talked earlier about that you'd like to talk about some ETs that I'm in contact with and IFOs, identifiable flying objects that I have encountered, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'd love to ask questions. You want to go back and forth, TJ? We can take turns. I ask one, then you ask one. Does that work for you, TJ?
Can you hear me?
Okay, so I'd
like to hear her talk, and then we could ask questions after if it's okay. But I'd like to hear from her for the first time, and then have you ladies. I'm going to mute, so you two do the dance, and I'm going to listen for a few minutes.
Okay. So Agnes, we like to start with the guest, and you're the guest. Tell us your story. Tell us about yourself, and go back to your earliest memories, especially when it involves spirituality, consciousness, becoming aware that you're more than a 3D personality, that you had some kind of contact with higher beings or extraterrestrials or whatever it was for you, and kind of give us an overview for about 15 minutes, and then we'll ask you some questions.
All right. Okay. Well, I was watching a sunset in rural British Columbia when I was about 13, 14 years old. And while I was watching that sunset, I was overcome by an experience. It felt like a light had dawned in my psyche. And I saw my soul purpose at age 14. And I knew that I was to be an activator of humanity and a spiritual teacher of humanity. So I put that kind of in the background of my life, if you wish, and knew that at some point in my life I would get back to that. I originally thought that it meant that I should be a missionary, but I observed my aunt who was a missionary in the Belgian Congo in those days in the 60s, and I didn't like what they were doing, is trying to convince people about a certain religion. And when I was 16 years old, I left the religion that I was brought up in, which was Mennonite Brethren, and I began to seek other ways of expressing what I was seeing and what I was beginning to know. So the journey went on for about 10, 15, 20 years, where I had children and so forth, and went through 2 marriages, and suddenly I'm experiencing someone asking me, what do you think about reincarnation? And that really got me going on my spiritual journey again. I was about 37 years old at the time. So I researched reincarnation, and before I knew it, I had accessed a spiritual healing modality, which is known as Reiki. It was rediscovered in the late 1800s, and it's a hands-on healing technique. And I thought immediately when I heard about it that I needed to pursue this healing art, which I did. And it was kind of interesting because I was at that point living with my husband in a blue-collar town, military town. He was a military base commander, fighter pilot type. But I found a Reiki master teacher, and while she was teaching me the classes, I had an out-of-body, and during that session of out-of-body, I went back to the Pleiades star system, and I was walking around in this beautiful place with these Corinthian type columns all around me, and this beautiful, felt like a big pool with this golden light emanating from it, and there were all kinds of amazing beings walking around, and I knew that I'd been there before. I recognized later that this was the star of Alcyone. It was where the golden light has come from, and it's actually the center of our universe in our galaxy, which we access from planet Earth. And so I discovered that I was Pleiadian in my origins. And from then on, the visions became stronger and stronger, and I began to work with Reiki very seriously.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because I want to flesh that out a little bit. So you were just in a Reiki session, and you ended up doing this out of body and going back and discovering all this stuff. What was going on with this Reiki that was so powerful that it? Because I haven't heard anybody getting that type of insights, but maybe that's more common than I know. But is that common in Reiki that you get? It's almost like you were hypnotized, regressed. What was going on there? Yeah.
I've been visionary since a child, and I came into this life as a wise elder, which has been read in my fingerprints many years ago. So Reiki, it was a catalyst. It was during the classes when the Reiki master was doing the initiations, and it was during those initiations that were very powerful for me that I went back into my cellular memory and went out of my body to experience as well. So it was very powerful for me, but it was like a little kick in the what's a good term for that? A little kick underneath me for me to remember who I was.
Wow.
Okay. It started off on a pretty interesting journey, and not long after that, I was doing Reiki constantly. I had clients that just came just kind of out of the blue, and was very, very busy facilitating Reiki hands-on healing. And also during that time, I had many appearances of Jesus standing beside my Reiki table. And at one point, about half a year after I started doing energy work, I had a very powerful experience where I knew somebody was trying to contact me. So I laid down on my meditation room and suddenly there was a hand on top of my head, and I saw Jesus, who is also known as Sananda, and he's an amazing avatar, as I'm sure you all know. And he facilitated like an ascension process with me at that time. And I was kind of in my early 40s at that time, and my whole body, I saw my body splitting apart, and there was this golden pillar of light that went right through the center of my body, and it was kind of like I was a split pea. There was a left side and a right side. And Jesus said, you're my beloved daughter in whom I'm well pleased, which sounds very biblical. But what I took that to mean was that I was following in his footsteps, that I was being a teacher and being anointed into being a teacher of spirituality and so forth. So that was
now, what did he look like? Can you describe what the manifestation that Jesus, what he looked like as he appeared to you?
Absolutely. There was a picture hanging in my bedroom as a child of Jesus, and he pretty much looked like that. He was wearing a long white robe, and he had brown hair to the shoulders, and it looked like he had this crown of gold all around the top of his head, his crown chakra. And I think it's very interesting because I lived in Israel for 2 years, and I taught Reiki there, and one of my students would keep seeing Jesus, but with a tefillin on his forehead. That's the little Jewish gadget that individuals wear, which is supposed to give them more of a metaphysical connection to their meditations and readings.
Okay.